Okie Show. All right, and welcome to the Okie Show, the podcast that explores the heartland's entertainment industries. I'm Brian.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Neil.
And we are here with three awesome dudes that have definitely never been on the show before. Never. Ever.
I've never met them ever.
I know. And really, we actually just kind of picked you up off the street and we're like, you guys look interesting.
They look like
because
film
our
people.
Yeah. Our original guests.
I think it's the t-shirts.
So everybody, please welcome to the show the director of Electric Nostalgia, Mr. Jacob Burns.
Woo. I feel like we should have applause. It's a podcast.
We have an amazing photographer, the producer of Wailing Wheat and
that's
Waving Wheat. Okay, so we just shot Wailing, and that's what was in my brain. And anyways, Mr. Zach Burns, everybody welcome him to the show as well.
Hi.
Imagine there's a round of applause happening.
No applause.
Please hold your applause. And the editor of the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight, the Cinematropolis, Mr. Caleb Masters.
Hey, everybody. Well, you guys got him.
And he's also probably a familiar voice because you have several podcasts as well.
I have infinite number of podcasts, actually.
Infinite
podcasts on movies and Game of Thrones and all sorts of other things that I love.
Are you, okay, what's your relationship with the Good Trash?
Yeah, so I produced Back to the Movies for Good Trash Media. The show's been on hiatus for a few months now, but and currently I'm producing a Game of Thrones podcast, The Cast Beyond the Wall. Now, I have been doing that for 4 years before Good Trash, but it is currently being hosted by the website there.
Nice.
Wow.
Awesome. I'm going to have to listen to that show
I'm
because,
like
dude, Game of Thrones is getting so freaking intense. By the time this episode airs, it's going to be old news.
Hey, listen,
man, you remember how
I've got podcasts going all the way back to season 4 of Game of Thrones, The Cast Beyond the Wall. Look us up. We have a new episode that comes out every Wednesday when the show's on, plus season precaps and recaps. That's
nice.
Man,
perfect for a rewatch.
Perfect.
I'm not really a Game of Thrones fan. Like,
you know what, Neil, get out.
I've never watched Game of Thrones, and so my buddy was like, "You have to watch Game of Thrones." And I watched one episode and half the cast died.
It's like a random episode? You just threw you in there.
Did you start the first one? Yeah.
No, the newest episode that had just came out.
Oh, no. Why?
Yeah, you shouldn't start there.
It was all
I like to watch my movies like Memento. It started at the very end.
right in the climax of the show.
Yeah.
It was cool, though. I mean, it was awesome.
Well, you don't have to watch any of the rest of the episodes now because you know what happens.
I encourage you to go back and watch old episodes because the new episodes they're very fun, but they're not quite the same.
Well, it's not about the destination; it's about the journey. Yeah, they all die,
And
but
your
now you need to find out how they got there.
But I would encourage you, Neil, be very, very careful of the company that you have in the house whenever you're watching Game of Thrones, because I made the mistake one time. My mother-in-law was drifting through the house while I was watching Game of Thrones. And it just so happened to be the one scene where the guy gets his member taken off. And right before he gets his member taken off, there's like 3 naked ladies like seducing him and everything. And I'm watching, in the context of the show, you're like, what the fuck is about to go down? And then my mother-in-law drifts in the room and she's like, so Brian, I was... and then she just walked out of the room. And
I'll come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah. When you're done.
There's a whole video on that. It's like people getting cast and stuff, and they're explaining in vigorous detail all the things, and then they're like, "It's not porn, it's HBO."
Right? Yeah. Well, it's weird because Game of Thrones is the worst about this thing they call sexposition.
Yeah.
And it's the worst because it's not like where you can just skip and like be like, "Oh no." It's because
they have like important dialogue.
Right. Critical points in the midst of this.
Yes. Yeah. It gets a lot lighter in the later seasons. Those early seasons where they weren't sure, it was a gamble. They're like, we're going to work all of the exposition to all the sex scenes every other scene.
Everyone has to see this.
George R.R. Martin is like... So anyway, so we're already way off topic. We went down the Game of Thrones rabbit hole real fast. But so you guys have a brand new website called The Cinematropolis. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because first of all, awesome name.
Yeah, great name.
Thank you.
Do you have a superhero that patrols Cinematropolis?
The Cinematropolis might have a giant robot that shows up from time to time. No relation to Electric Nostalgia, I assure you.
Right. Okay, as long as does he have a face? That's really important.
I can't remember.
Oh, no, I can't remember his face.
spoilers, sir.
That's a reference to Electric Nostalgia for anybody that
It
doesn't
is.
know.
Spoilers, guys.
No spoilers.
Yeah, so the Cinematropolis is a website. We just launched it back in June, about a week before Dead Center or so. But it was actually a good timing because we got to post a bunch of exclusive Dead Center interviews with the director of Gremlin. Of course, these two gentlemen had their own project, Fleeting Light, to talk about. And then we also got to talk with the Oklahoma film winner director, Mickey Reese's Alien. So we got to talk to Mickey and Jacob and Kate. So it was actually really great timing. But the Cinematropolis, we're dubbing it Thoughtful Conversations on Film. And what we really want to do is we notice there's a lot of reviews out there. We're living in an internet climate where there's a lot of geek culture, which I love, I'm a part of, but we want something that's more than just like really, baity headlines about read listicles and these quick fun facts. Like we really miss like a more traditional, old school form of internet writing. Can't believe I'm saying that. Where you're looking at long form essays. Our essays usually run between 1,000 and 2,000 words a piece, and we really want to look at essays over reviews. Reviews are like, hey, this is cool. What did we think? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And while I've been doing like film reviewing for like 5 or 6 years now, it is nice to really be able to pick movies that aren't necessarily the hottest, newest thing per se, but really dig into movies I love or maybe I don't love, and really analyze them and look at them through a very specific lens, and hopefully give readers and viewers of our video essays a chance to have a more thoughtful engagement with the films they're watching.
That's awesome. So in what capacity are you guys a part of the Cinematropolis?
So we, it really kind of started with me and Zachary. And so we've, obviously as filmmakers, we're also just fans of film in general. And so for me, especially when I was first kind of starting out, that was a lot of how I learned. Was I watch movies, but it was also from reading about movies. And so what I have found in the last few years is that we're actually losing a lot of really good film analysis websites. There was one called The Dissolve, which was incredible.
Did it dissolve?
It dissolved.
It dissolved.
It dissolved.
Yeah,
tragically.
Tragic irony.
So it was shut down. And then there's also other ones like Grantland and stuff like that. Lots of kind of... But like Caleb was saying, like you can find so many people reviewing movies out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great too. But like to really dig deep into movies, that's a whole new thing, and it's a separate thing. And so that's what we felt like was missing for us. Like part of it was like we just wanted more for us to read, like because we're losing these sites that we like so much. And so, and also that's how I discovered a lot of movies. Like I actually found that I've discovered less movies after the Dissolve shut down because they had new movies all the time that I hadn't heard of from like, the 60s or the 70s, the 50s, and 40s. They talk about anything. And so I've kind of lost that kind of source for finding new movies.
Right.
And so that's kind of where it started. Was we kind of wanted to bring that, and maybe hopefully, because even already with the Cinematropolis, like we bring in contributing writers and stuff like that, and they're able to kind of choose what movies they want to talk about based on the theme that we've chosen. And it's been cool because already they've chosen movies that I wouldn't have chosen or movies that I haven't seen. And so already, even just for me, it's kind of filling that gap a little bit that we lost to some of those other sides. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, that's really... So one thing that I want to kind of touch on, and we talked a little bit about this off camera, but and off recording. There's so many new elements. This is our 4th episode in with the new studio space, and I'm just now getting used to it. Like, just now.
Nice studio, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Very, very cool.
nice.
Thank you to the everybody from the Mostly Harmless Media. Hey. And we even have an engineer in the back. His name's Jay. Whoa. Jay!
He shouted. Yes.
I'm hearing voices, guys.
So
he's real, I promise.
So touch on a little bit the difference between a film review and a film essay.
Yeah.
Or did we already talk about that? And I'm just
You did kind of hit it a little bit.
We hit it on a little bit, but I mean, at least I'll kick us off at least. So when you're looking at reviews, what you're looking at, the way the internet works is the internet, generally speaking, especially on film websites, newest, latest, best, all the time. It's going to be new, or it has to be something that's very, very relevant to the conversation that's going on in the cultural zeitgeist. So things that are happening, a lot of times reviews or the essays that do get published are all writing off of the cuff of what's popular, what are people thinking about that aren't related to movies but remind them of movies. For instance, we're in this big nostalgia culture right now, like neck deep. So you're seeing all sorts of, it was 80s nostalgia, 90s nostalgia. That's all being mined. So those are all fine. Reviews specifically.
As long as we're not getting into 2000s nostalgia yet.
Someone posted
We'll get there. We'll get there.
No.
Someone
Scares the shit out of me.
whenever Lost comes back, whenever they do a launch reboot, as a dear fan of Lost, we've reached the 2000s.
Anyway, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Reviews, though, are saying, hey, I liked it. I didn't like it. Here's what worked. It's more of a formalist approach to writing. Hey,
in a more immediate response.
Yes.
I've watched this once. This is how I feel about it.
And I watched it yesterday, and I wrote this thing last night because I wanted to get it up tomorrow so I could be one of the first people posted so I get the clicks I need to generate the revenue.
So much.
Yeah.
So much.
You love it, Brian?
I've always had an issue with film reviews, which is kind of funny because we might be starting our own film review thing.
Ooh.
You? No,
well, me and one of the other members of the Okie Show community. Maybe, we'll see. I literally spent all day like testing live feed stuff. But just like, first of all, the speed that you have to crank the stuff out.
Yeah.
And like what you just said about how you watch it one time and you're like, well, I have a perfect view of this movie. Mm-hmm. How many movies have you watched? I think back to whenever I saw Schindler's List for the first time.
Oh, man.
And why would you laugh?
No, I mean,
Schindler's List.
I knew.
You started laughing before you said Schindler's List. I just want to know that.
I knew that a movie of that type was
I was
like,
so
dare I
thinking
say it, Fight Club.
I was so
Fight
thinking
Club.
like it was probably some sort of thing like Schindler's List. Like it went in my head anyway.
Where it takes a second for it to sink in. Like I remember watching that for the first time, and it didn't fully sink in until like several days later.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
you got to give movies the chance to register with you before you're like, darn, it was bad. Thumbs down. But
Yeah,
that's my
totally.
rant.
Yeah.
So in comparison, like essays are more in depth, more analytical in a sense, or I mean.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on. So film essays they're going to be longer, and at least the type of essays we're writing about. We have monthly themes that we set up. So, for instance, in June we had our monthly theme was first films by great directors. So we looked at the Wachowskis. We looked at Wes Anderson, and Jacob talked a little bit about hey. All these, even Steven Spielberg, these guys had first films that might not have been like as amazing, or at least not the same as they are today. But man, they were still great, and they're still worth looking at. And a lot of people don't ever get into the early filmographies of these really legendary directors who hit it big down the road.
Have you seen Christopher Nolan's first short film?
Following.
Yeah.
Oh, the short film?
not
short film, yeah.
Doodlebug?
Doodlebug, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's funny.
Is it? It's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I would encourage all the listeners and the viewers, go look up Doodlebug by Christopher Nolan.
It's not what you'd expect from Christopher Nolan.
No, not at all. And that's
yeah.
the thing. I think that's why it's like, because I just got done watching Dunkirk, which like to me, my friend and I left the theater just like in awe of the whole thing. I think it might be his best. But that's just me.
It's excellent, yeah.
It's great.
It might. Anyway.
You could put it in that conversation.
Yeah. But and then going back and watching Doodlebug, it's like, what?
One example, I actually had a similar experience when I went and watched Bound, which is the Wachowski siblings' first film. I'd never seen it before, but we kicked off the theme, and I said, you know what? I love the Wachowskis. I love The Matrix. I love Cloud Atlas. Jupiter Ascending, we're not going to talk about, but I love their movies, and I love even Sense8, their TV show. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back and see their first film. And when I watched it, it was basically a single location or like a 2-3 room film, really close proximity. But what was really cool about it and going back was while it was definitely not this crazy spiritual special effects driven film that they've become known for, all those ideas that they would go on to pursue throughout their careers were all present in the film. And that was what was really cool. It was like seeing them kind of the ideas that they were drawn to as filmmakers very early on, not developed or anything, but like were still present in a mob movie, like a mob hold up movie, essentially, that are still present in these giant, some of the most ambitious films I've ever seen. And that's the thing about the essays, though, is we have monthly themes, and under those themes we allow our writers to write something, and we very high level themes, essays, writers can contribute, and their essays can really be anything under that umbrella. And they can pick any film. They just need to have like an angle on it they're really passionate about. And
So how would a if somebody's listening to this show and they're like, I have awesome views and I like to write, how would they go about getting on or getting involved with Cinematropolis? I swear I can speak normal.
Why don't you take it?
Yeah, well, there's actually...
I would prefer that you answer, Jacob.
Yeah, we actually have a handy little page on our website on the cinematropolis.com where you can do that or submit ideas. There's an email. What's the email?
it's the cinematropolis@gmail.com.
There it is, the cinematropolis@gmail.com, where people can pitch ideas, and you'll be talking directly to Caleb Masters over here, and he'll give you a yes or no, basically, or talk you through where your pitch might, where it might go. And
so
stuff
like
that.
we want to put a big focus on like actual writing. Like it's not just it's not just talking about movies, just whatever random thoughts you have. Like we want to actually be well-written pieces.
Right.
What? You want people to
That's
write
weird.
things
You
with
can
like
handle it.
grammar?
So this might scare some people away, but we want you to have a thesis. I know.
Can I
I know.
submit something
Yikes.
in cursive to you guys? Because I feel like people don't do that anymore, and it might give me a leg up. I write beautiful.
Only if you
beautifully
write it with a
cursive.
quill pen and an
I
English
can
accent.
do
That's
that.
right. If you write it
I
in
can
an English
do
accent.
calligraphy.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
getting
submit it, and
I'm into it.
we'll see. Caleb
Yes.
get
We're gonna talk about Veronica
So-
Mars. There's no more
Caleb's
Veronica
a
Mars.
stickler.
Transformers transcended all.
The main idea of like your guys' essays is it just to talk film theory? I had checked one out that was on there, the character-driven car chase, right?
Done by Zachary Burns over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
by the
whoa.
one and only. And so, like, are you guys just only diving into the theory of filmmaking and like character arc and like everything that happens that is the idea of like film, or are you talking more technical or just in general?
I think it's pretty open. Like
Yeah.
we kind of leave it open to the contributor and whatever they and Caleb work out, because like it's sometimes the essays kind of can be more technical about like, oh, here's the craft of it, but then sometimes it's about like just putting it into context. Like this movie came out, Joshua Unruh did one on Smokey and the Bandit, and he didn't just talk about like the movie, but he also kind of put it in the context of the time that it came out, talked about what was happening in the world and stuff like that. So you get a lot more interesting pieces about that, and it can be more kind of social ideas and stuff like that, and then how those contributed to the movie versus the way things are now.
That's
or,
awesome.
compare and contrast how things are now. So yeah, we kind of leave it. We kind of want to hit everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that specific essay by Joshua and my video essay both came from our theme of that month was car chases.
Cinematic car chases.
Cinematic car chases, which I mean, and that's also something we want to do. Like we like having a theme that kind of gives us a jumping off point for people's pieces, but still leaves it pretty open to where they can still talk about basically anything. So he talked about Smokey and the Bandit and the cultural context of that movie of when it came out. And then, I talk about car chases where you barely see anything. And so it's just a good jumping off point to again, help us find new angles to talk about films and to talk about new films that some of us, haven't seen before.
Very
And
nice.
are you guys? I know you mentioned at least that you're wanting to kind of focus on some of the local stuff as well. I mean, is that like one of the highlights of the Cinematropolis is to focus on local filmmakers, local films,
Yes.
that kind of thing? As
So,
well?
we are an Oklahoma-based website, and we definitely want to give a platform to filmmakers who think they've got really cool stories they want to tell, or maybe they have things about film that they want to add to the conversation on the internet. The internet is a very big, huge animal, and, we do want to expand beyond Oklahoma, but we also think that there's definitely a need in Oklahoma for Oklahoma filmmakers to have a platform to get their stories out there, because there's a lot of awesome things, and there's a lot of awesome things happening here
Oh,
that
yeah.
the greater internet, almost knows nothing about. So we really want to help give a platform and give those folks who are making films here a voice and get them kind of in the internet game as well.
That's awesome.
So, I
I
mean,
love
and
that.
we'll talk to anyone. I mean, if we can get someone from LA on
Yeah.
maybe like Cinematropolis Radio, which is kind of how we did, Dead Center, where we're just talking to people like a radio show, or we get contributors from New York or Chicago to write for the website. We're going to take that. But we also, because we're Oklahoma, Zach and Jacob are very well connected here in the Oklahoma community. We also know that there's a lot of really cool people who we also want to spotlight here just as well as anywhere else in the country.
I love that. Yeah.
So now you mentioned Cinematropolis Radio. Is that a podcast that you guys have as well?
So it's the format I chose to do the interviews for Dead Center. There might or might not be a podcast in development that I might or not be very, very excited about when it might or might not come out. Because podcasting...
I didn't think you were into podcasts.
I didn't. I know. I don't look like that type of guy. But no, but I am a big fan, really big believer in podcasting. I think what you guys are doing here is really great, and I think it just allows for a lot of innovation. And I think there's a need online for a certain type of podcast that does not exist yet. And I think that we could put our own unique brand and spin on doing a podcast. At some point, hypothetically, that could be pretty cool if it were to happen.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
but anytime we have kind of like one shot interviews or whatnot, someone you have a chance to talk to a cool filmmaker, you're not going to say no. And for me, I'm never. There are written interviews. I don't really like to read full-blown written interviews. I'd rather just listen. So that's kind of the format we're rolling for. We have an RSS feed for it, just the Cinematropolis Radio. But there are future plans in the works for a full-blown podcast.
Sweet. So I want to get into some technical stuff because here on the Okie Show, we like to help people learn how to do certain
How to
things.
do stuff because
How
we
to
don't
do-
know.
And
Sorry, guys, those are
do
trade
things.
secrets. We can't reveal that.
Get out.
So what we're talking about is a website that is completely engrossed in what's called new media, blogging, podcasting, video essays, all this kind of stuff. And so with that, there's a lot of technical things that happen behind the scenes. So like, first of all, let's talk about the website. How do you get your website hosted and built?
So whenever me and Zachary first came up with this idea for this website, the first thing we realized was that neither of us knew how to do this. And
Tends to happen.
and so we were very fortunate that we knew Mr. Caleb Masters, who has a lot of experience doing these type of things. And so he was, when we were trying to think, we were like, wouldn't it be great if we could like be idea guys and someone else could actually like do this stuff for us? And then
I wish I could do that.
it was amazing.
I can't wait until that's kind of what the game is.
Yeah, it was amazing. Today I went to the Cinematropolis website and was like, wow, look at all these new articles. But yeah, so that was what we did. Caleb was the first person we thought of as a possible editor-in-chief, and he kind of really brought his expertise in that. So why don't you talk about that stuff?
Yeah, so when it comes to building a website, you need to find an actual host. So there's a lot of different hosts out there. GoDaddy is a particular popular one. We use Bluehost, which is another really popular one. And a fun little tidbit: they'll tell you they're charging you for per month, but then they charge you in bulk at the same time. They don't tell you that. They never tell you
a nice
that.
little detail.
Yeah, nice. If you're buying a website and
Yeah.
you're like, hey, only $10 a month, that's great. And then you have like, $150 missing from your bank. You're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
why we went with Squarespace.
Squarespace.
The Okie Show is brought to you by
Squarespace.
Just like every other podcast on the entire planet.
So you need to get a host, and then that's where you decide. Once you get the host, you decide, okay, am I going to go with Squarespace? Are you going to go with Weebly? I have a lot of experience with WordPress. It's like, and I feel like I know it. I feel like I have a love relationship with WordPress because I know what I can do, and there's a lot of customization options that are available. On WordPress, you can make it as simple or as complex as you want to, and that's why I really gravitated towards that. So you get a host, and then you get your online operating system, so to speak, and we went with WordPress. And once you do that, you need to pick your theme, which we actually spent a pretty good deal of time sifting through themes, and I think Zach discovered the one we landed on. We went through a few, and then you install the theme on top of your operating system on the WordPress, and then that's when the real fun starts. Then you get to tinker with it and you add your widgets, like your drop down menus. That's when you get to add your art and your graphics. And Zach, having bring his graphic design expertise to the table, did a really bang up, awesome job getting all the graphics going and making sure all the colors align. So it's like looks all slick and futury with those like blue neon lights. It looks great.
Yes. First of all, the design that you guys came up with,
Yeah,
that I guess,
love the
Zach, you came up with the
shirt and
Cinematropolis design.
That was me. I'm sorry.
It's really bad.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
No, it's really, really good. It's like pretty much everything that you come up with is really good.
Ah, shucks.
Everybody give Zach a compliment.
Oh,
You're so-
please do.
you're
You're just so
fantastic.
great.
Yes,
You're so
just
great.
class.
Jacob, not so much, but
Like,
you're
just
so
much
great.
class.
Oh, thanks, guys. You know what? You're all right.
I'll take it.
So the next thing when you're building something like this is overhead. So with the Okie Show, we have a particular amount of expenses every month that we have to deal with, and this is not a money-making machine just yet. Where we're trying to, we're getting our sponsorship stuff working
Brian is
slowly
going
but
into debt
surely.
because of this podcast company.
I have missed meals so that you people could listen to the show.
That's interesting because we've become millionaires from that.
The second we launched, it was just money in the bank.
Yeah, instant success.
Exactly.
So
Laugh at my jokes.
please. So first of all, what kind of overhead do you guys have for something like this? Because you're shooting video essays. Are you using like actual legitimate cameras and sound equipment and all that kind of stuff, or are you just using webcams?
So we, for the video essays, what we mostly do is we're not really on screen for any of them. We our template is we take clips from movies and stuff like that. It's kind of just voiceover over it. So we're trying to keep our overhead as low as possible right now with the hopes that we can, as the site gets bigger. But we do, one thing that is really important to us is all the contributors. We do pay them for if they write something or if they make a video essay. We will pay them. It's not a lot now, but hopefully as we grow, we can pay more. But that is something that's important to us.
Yeah. And I did notice that you also, this is a big piece of overhead that always blindsides me, but you have shirts, you have stickers. You got to pay for all that. So first of all, when you're starting out like this, where does all that money come from?
So we
and what's the PIN number?
So our bank account is so basically we used some money from our so me and Zachary co-own a production company called Planet Thunder Productions.
Sure.
You guys may have heard about. And
What?
so
Nah.
we so the Cinematropolis is kind of an offshoot, kind of a spin-off of Planet Thunder. And so
Within the Planet Thunder cinematic universe?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Remember everything we say tonight. It's going to be important. 15 years.
Right, yeah.
15 projects.
And once we hit phase 6.
It was all part of the plan. The secret to success, right in this
Exactly.
moment.
Yeah. The Cinematropolis is the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right. There's going to be a massive crossover eventually.
So that's where most of our money comes from, is from our production company. And like I said, we try to keep it low. And then some things, like the shirt that Caleb's wearing, we didn't order a bulk
There's only one
bunch of shirts. Yeah,
There's only one shirt. David got it.
You guys just pass the shirt.
It's like the traveling pants of shirts.
Yeah, we share a routine.
Exactly.
I mean, they notice it's stretched out when I give it to them for some reason.
Throw it in the dryer, shake it out.
Right.
But and Zachary can probably explain this better. But yeah, there's sites where you can set up that basically it's essentially made to order. So if you order it, then the company that we've set it up with, they will make it and send it to you.
Nice.
No way. Is that a real thing? Because I need to know about this for separate reasons. Just because maybe I want a lot of shirts made. It's for a high school reunion. Don't ask me. But that's a really cool thing. Okay, that's good to know. I just learned something. See, I learned so many things.
You can apply the knowledge of this show to everything, including high school reunions.
Do you guys? I mean, would you recommend starting when in your process do you start looking for patrons or things like that? I mean, I know that we've kind of dabbled in Patreon, dabbled in certain things, but that wasn't really in the beginning of the show. Like, we need patrons for this. We need someone to. It was
I
more
started
of a
this
just
show,
let's just do it, right?
I literally just was like, I want to do something.
Right.
Meh. And there it was.
Can you,
and it's pretty much stayed at that quality.
Yeah, it's stayed at that poop level the entire time.
do you think that there's a kind of a sweet spot in where, should you go for it before you even start your project, or just get your project off the ground? That's a good thing. I think for people listening that they should know this. Yeah.
So here's the thing about patrons. if you want to go the Patreon route or you want to try to raise monthly funds from your base, so you need to have a base before you can ask them for money, because then they're going to be like, who are these people asking me? And Zach and Jacob make movies, but it's not the same thing as a website that generates online content. You know, it's a really different animal. Either that, or you need to be a person who's done a lot of awesome stuff, and you say, hey, I've got this big thing I want to do, and I can't do it without your funding, because it's true. You know, it's kind of like you guys did an Indiegogo for Electric Nostalgia, and you had to have that funding. The Patreon's a different model, but it's less about the time and more about I would say probably your faith in your own base.
Okay.
When do you think, because the thing is, they don't have, especially with Patreon, they don't have to give you money.
Absolutely, right.
But you say, hey, if you give us money, we get to do more cool stuff, and you get rewards for giving us money. But I would definitely say, what is your confidence in your base? You should definitely be doing something before you ask them for money. Absolutely. And for some websites or podcasts, like that happens like that. Like they get a huge base instantly because they're best friends, a celebrity who guest hosted on the show, or they hit a sweet topic at the right time so everyone knows about them. But for the podcasts, I mean, I have done, speaking of Good Trash Media stuff earlier, I did Patreon work with them for a good while, but that podcast has been going on for, 2.5 years before there was a Patreon launch, a soft Patreon launch, and then we did a full-blown relaunch a year later. So, I mean, the podcast before we went to a full-blown website, and that particular project had existed for 3 years, and we had a small but dedicated base that was very interactive. So I think, having an interactive base, and if they're not interactive, you have to know them and know that they are very invested in your show. I think those are things to look at, less so than like necessarily a specific timeline. Like there's not if I wait 6 months and that's the right time. It's more of take the temperature, see what your people are feeling like. Do they want more? If you throw it out there, they're going to engage.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good tips for us.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just, a lot of it's just keep making content. I think that's where a lot of people fail is they like, oh, no one's reading it or no one's, so what's the point? And like but the only way you're going to get people to read it is if you just keep doing it.
It's like my Zanga account. Like I kept writing those Zanga posts.
Oh, man.
And sooner or later, the guy I was writing them to, he finally read them.
See, exactly.
It might have
You'll
taken
find your
300
audience.
Posts.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Your audience will find you.
It was years after, and you were already married.
I was already,
Ship had sailed.
Turned from this can happen to remember the days.
And one thing I'd add on to what Jacob's saying too, just for any content creators or people who do want to monetize their content at some point, like do it regularly for a while. I mean, do it regularly. Stay on a schedule. Let your audience needs to know exactly what they expect. That's the thing. Once you become, especially online, once whatever you're making for them, whether it's videos or essays or podcasts, once you are a part of their life in one form or another, and they know when to expect all that stuff, that's when they're going to be a lot more willing to want to give you money and engage. It's really cool to have a community behind you that you can talk to, and they love all the same things you do.
Yeah, that's true. Because like I have a mini panic attack whenever Harmontown is late.
I know. I do too now.
Where's my Dan Harmon? So the next thing I want to talk to you guys is God, I cannot talk today. What is wrong with me? Jay, is it your fault?
No. Good. No, it is not. We love Jay, Brian. Get out.
I want to talk
section
about
of the podcast is brought to you by Jay.
It's brought to you by Jay.
Thanks, Jay. One and only Jay.
Thanks, Jay. So I want to talk about marketing, because that's one thing. Dude, I am so freaking lazy with this podcast. I share it on Facebook groups and then talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And then I wear my shirt. And I
wear my
kid you
shirt.
not, every time I wear my shirt out in public, somebody asks about it. So,
Yeah.
But how do you guys go about marketing aside from walking around and looking awkward?
That's a lot of it.
That's a big part of it, yeah.
And then
Just actually handing people stickers like, oh darn.
don't worry.
We had a misdirect just
there you go.
Speaking of marketing,
You hand people stickers and
hold the phone.
I'll give you this is how you do it.
I want one.
Take one, pass it around.
Do
Hey
it
guys,
exactly
we have
how.
to check out our website called the Cinematropolis.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, whoa, that's awesome.
This is going on the menu for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
So my initial question is, where did you get the stickers? Like, how did you, or what website did you go to?
So Zachary designed them. And
It's an amazing website called 123stickers.com.
Oh. See, I go to Sticker Junkie I don't know whatever cheap prices.
Work with that. You're going to work with the junkies, not the 1, 2, 3 people.
I prefer junkies. They're much more reliable.
Well, I mean, 1, 2, 3 stickers. We have a long relationship. Jacob and I, when we were in a band together in high school, we 1, 2, 3 stickers is where we went to get our band stickers.
Nice.
So we go back a ways.
All reliable. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. No, so I think marketing is always the hardest part. Hey, I've got especially today in 2017.
Yes. So much noise.
Because guess what? Yes, exactly. Noise is perfect. Because guess what?
Everyone has a podcast.
Everyone's got a podcast. Everyone's got a blog. Everyone's got the coolest thing ever. And I'm not going to, I mean, hey, I'm not going to speak ill about people. There's also a lot of bad things. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of awesome things like the Okie show, or the Cinematropolis, or Good Trash Media, or any of that, or the Cast Behind the Wall. Yeah. A lot of awesome things out there.
Or the voice of the artist. You guys should
Voice of the artist, yes.
Oh,
please
yes,
do.
yes,
Yeah,
quite.
Daniel and Ashley are great. So, there's a lot out there. There's a lot going on. So what you have to do is figure out, how do I get my project outside the noise, or how do I find my audience? Because that's the thing. There's so many different types of audiences. It used to be, go way back, it used to be television, and everyone watched the same 4 channels. So that's why everyone watched MASH. That's why MASH is the most watched thing on television ever. The finale was, right? So, but as we've gone on and it's gone into the internet age, the internet started out much the same way. Oh, there's like 5 YouTube videos. Everyone that's got bajillions of views, Gundam Style, we all saw that a million times. Like, the further you get, though, and the more accessible and cheaper technologies become, there are more people who are making content. So now the good news is there's also more humans in general, meaning there are more people who would be into your content or your podcast or whatever the case may be. It's about finding them.
One of the benefits of overpopulation. You got a huge audience.
and also, like, because the internet and because of just the overwhelming number of like TV shows, like there aren't really that many programs that everyone watches anymore.
Right.
So with that's kind of sad because we don't all share that, those things as a culture. However, there's all these what they call, I'm going to get really in the weeds now, but like little micro cultures on the internet.
Following.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
part of many.
And they all they find their own little bubble on the internet that they find friends to those things. So, I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at in 2017 is, how do I find my audience? How do I set myself apart from the noise in order to find my audience?
Right. Yeah. So how do you go about, like, specifically when we're talking about marketing, like you found your audience now, how do you reach them and what do you reach them with?
Lots of ads.
How do you find them, smack them in the face and be like, listen or watch or read my show?
So, well...
Yeah.
Read my show. That's a new thing.
Yeah, read my show. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a variety of things. So, like Caleb said, we launched right before Dead Center, and so we made damn sure that we had stickers ready for Dead Center. And so at Dead Center, Caleb would literally walk down the lines of people waiting in line for movies and be like, "Hey, we started this new movie website."
And then I got third people who says, "I've already got 3 already. What are you doing?"
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then
that's what we should have done when we were barking for that show.
We should have done that.
We totally should have just had a shit ton of stickers.
Stickers.
Easy.
Everyone
Yeah.
loves stickers.
Yeah.
I had watched
little
an episode of Crashing with Pete Holmes where they were barking, and like there's technique to barking. Like you snap the thing. It's always snapping the thing. I was like, this is the trick. This'll do it.
I was just standing like people didn't want to approach me because I was just like, I have a thing in my hand I want to give you right now.
Dude, it's so hard to get people to bite. Like,
Oh yeah, you kind of have to shove it in their faces and then move on.
Yeah.
Most people are gonna throw it away or whatever, but you like part of it is just
Yeah.
like, and it's not just about getting them to go to your site or whatever. And like we do this with Planet Thunder as well. It's just about getting the name into
Right.
their subconscious.
Right.
So eventually, it'll stick.
Early on, your goal is to get recognition, like name recognition or brand recognition. Oh yeah, Cinematropolis, I've heard of those guys.
Yeah,
and then later, I've heard of. They do film essays, right?
And then all of a sudden,
I read one of their essays
Yeah.
one time because my friend wrote from, which actually brings me to another point. Like, there's a lot of different marketing tactics. Some of them we have not implemented yet. Some of them we have. But one way to do one way to do it, especially if you have the money to throw at like higher profile people, or someone who's got a higher profile person. So for a podcast, for instance, hey, I've got an actor buddy or director buddy who's got 10K Twitter followers. Right now, it's the same thing, right? you get that
We need to
person.
start choosing our guests more wisely.
Well, I mean, that's one way to do it. But the thing is, like that person does have a following, if they're not a bunch of bots, and even though kind of like the stickers, maybe only 1% of that audience clicks on the link and listens. So it's about trying to have all guests. I don't think you should like pick your guests specifically just based on how famous or big a following they do. But whenever you do,
It'll be part of the pre-interview process. So I know that you're a professional and you've been on like 50 different movies, but how many Twitter followers
famous
do
are
you
you?
have?
And I think like even on a micro level, I mean, like the Okie show has essentially been doing this from the beginning. If the show was just Brian this whole time, people would stop listening. Probably.
But I love the sound of my own voice.
And yeah, you would just be posting, interviews with yourself or whatever. And so it's just you posting it.
I should just do a
And
Q&A with
yeah.
a bunch of character voices.
Yes, and so you're not getting in front of new people, and so that's part of why we want to do contributors. Like all three of us have done film writing, so the Cinematropolis could just be the three of us writing a bunch of essays. But we really wanted contributors because one that gives them a platform to do something cool, but it also helps the site because hey, now one of these other guys who isn't working on doesn't do everything, but they contributed an article or something. They're going to share it on their Facebook. They're going to share it on their Twitter. Yeah. And so even again, like you're just kind of just trying to slowly build. And so like that's why we want more contributors because one, it helps them, but it also helps us as a site.
Yeah, and I mean it's about identifying people who are going to have a good following, who are writers. So Joshua Enner, which I already got one name dropped. So hey, thanks Joshua. So we actually had a post that went live the date of the recording today, and it was about what does Captain America: Winter Soldier have to say about fighting the alt-right and Nazis, right?
Punching Nazis.
Punching Nazis. Essentially, but
By the time this show comes out, it won't be relevant. But right now, relevant.
but
It's always relevant.
always.
It's true. Punching Nazis should never be not relevant.
Always.
That was so yesterday. Punching Nazis.
Now we light them on fire.
But Joshua, for example, he's a huge comic book guru. He knows all the comic book stuff, and he of course loves superhero films. And two things: he loves superhero stuff, and he likes things are a little older, like Smokey and the Bandit. So it's about, hey, Joshua, I know you're passionate about these things. There's a topic we might want to write about, or hey, what do you have to say about this film on this theme? And like it's trying to find the right people who are they're best suited because they have a following who are really into that, and also can put out quality stuff as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you guys are picky because that's one thing that we've tried to do with this show is find people that are legitimate. And like, let's face it, when it comes to
What are we doing here?
who are you?
That's some bad news for you, Brian.
I mean, like in every film industry, like there's like legitimate people, and then there's other people that are still up and coming. Like I'm not going to say that there are illegitimate people, but they are still up and coming, and so they haven't quite gotten to that point. So we've always been trying to be relatively picky with the kind of people that we have on.
But in order to speak to the people who are up and coming and who might need those tips to get them where they need to be, because that's the key too, is helping the audience. Like, hey, we're struggling with this specific thing.
Yeah.
These people are doing well. What can we do? What can we learn? That's important, I think. Yeah.
Which, by the way, listeners, stay tuned because we're going to be starting to do some live shows at some different schools and stuff. So, yeah,
that's exciting. That's super exciting.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. And we're going to have an actor that was in the movie Logan.
Dude.
Was it the one guy who got his arm chopped off by Hugh Jackman himself?
We can't say.
We can't say.
Don't
Well, I mean,
give
that's
it
like
away.
every guy in the movie.
It's actually, his name starts with H, and his last name starts
Jackman.
with J.
I'm sorry.
His name starts with H and it ends with Jackman.
Brian,
You guys got Hugh Jackman?
who was this huge Jackman guy you're talking about?
Huge Jackman.
Well, okay, so definitely check out Cinematropolis.com, or it's thecinemetropolis.com.
correct.
Don't forget the.
Right. And I'm really looking forward to the comic book series of the robot that protects the Cinematropolis.
It's
you worry.
coming.
It's going to be great.
2018.
Action Comics issue 001.
I think it'll come out about the same time as George R. R. Martin's next Game of Thrones book, A Winds of Winter. I think it might be on that same schedule.
We'll all
I
be
think.
dead by then. So we'll
You know what? I feel like once Game of Thrones, the show, is done, I don't know if anyone's going to want to read the books.
Oh, I'm gonna want to read it. I am definitely.
Because the way that it's
You don't
in is
know
so
the pain.
epic. It's so, like, I want to
Pain.
see. Like, I'm watching because like this is a TV show, which means that there's a room of writers. I want to see George R. R. Martin, one dude, top that
He did by writing all of them before the show even came out. He wrote it all. And I'm just saying, he's a feisty little lover because he is keeping us waiting. He is
just him and all of his wolves.
Come on with me. Waiting, George.
Well, we're going to move on to a Kelly's Corners segment. Kelly, do you have a corner?
I do have a corner today.
Kelly's Corner.
Yeah, if anyone, you all can chime in on the theme song. It's totally, we don't have one, but it's a thing. You can just say Kelly's Corner and it's fine.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Kelly's Corner.
Guys, that was so beautiful. Thank you. You know, I have a babysitter tonight, which I don't do a lot because it's expansive. And
Is she a member of the Babysitters Club?
close. I mean, she just joined. She has cards. So I feel like she did just join the club, and I'm welcoming her into the home. Yeah, I'm like, okay. She gave me a card, and the price was very low. Hopefully she's not watching because I don't mean to tell her that it's low, but it's low. And I was
She's
like,
watching.
yeah.
She's like, what?
I know. She's like, I come home. She's like, that'll be $15 an hour, and I'm like, oh. But it's funny because, you know, she's 15, and her mom dropped her off, and then came in to meet me because safety for your child. I get it as a parent, but I'm pretty sure her mom's going to stay the whole time. So basically, I'm paying a child to watch my children. And the parent of the child who's watching the children is also parenting the child while the child parents my children. If that makes sense. I know, it's kind of crazy.
Parentception.
If my kids are alive by the end of it, I'm happy.
You gotta go 3 levels deep into that parentage to find out.
You do.
Soon grandma shows up.
It's like
You paid for the price of 1, 3 generations.
I like the extra security.
the babysitting version of a glitch in the Matrix.
It is. It really is. It really is. It's
She
great
walks
though.
in, and then she walks in again. But
Yeah.
that was mom.
And the mom and the child and the children and the mom returns to the child and the mother and the children. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. It makes me uneasy just because I don't have control over what's happening in my house, and I don't have control over my 2-year-old daughter who is being kind of mean right now, if I can put it nicely. Hopefully she hears this when she's 16.
There was a picture that you posted of Coraline that kid looked so ready to mess some stuff up. Like it just had
afraid
this
of
look
her.
in its. I just said it.
Yeah.
Your
Thank
child.
you for using the
she.
proper pronoun, Brian. No one does.
She hasn't decided if she's one or the other. No, she had this look on her face like
Oh yeah. Or there's the
she's
like
ready to burn the house down.
perfectly timed eye roll as a 2-year-old where she looks at me and literally 3-second eye roll and then walks away with her finger. Like,
You know,
at me.
Wow.
They got to
Yeah.
learn that from somewhere.
That's all I got. Kelly's Corner. It's not very exciting. It's just weird. Like, there's a mother
Well, let's
and a
face it.
child and my children at my house, but not
That's-
the mother of the mother of the children. Yeah.
It's kind of the point of Kelly's Corner, though, because, darn it,
It's a
Kelly,
different
your
life.
life is weird.
It's a different
Your
life.
life is so
I know.
weird.
I know.
I'm 30 years old, and you have such a more mature life than me. Like,
And I have 2 years on you, Brian, and
I
women live
know.
longer than you men, so I'm gonna outlast all y'all in this room.
I'm gonna die so
That's
young. You have no
100%.
idea. I've abused this body. No.
I've watched too many James Dean movies. So only the good die young. Right?
Right? Yeah, it's true. Well, you guys ready to play a game? I think we have
We
a
got
time
time
for
for
a
a
game.
game.
Yeah.
Games are our
Yeah.
speciality.
Yes.
James.
As Obi-Wan Kenobi
Game
would
of
say.
Thrones, maybe.
Or Game of Thrones.
Game.
It will be.
We're going to play the Game of Thrones.
Yeah. It was originally titled Musical Chairs, but they decided that was not very cool. So a Game of Thrones was much cooler.
Well, then they found out when they played the music that Joffrey just came and killed all the
He just, like,
participants.
Right, yeah.
Killed everyone in the room.
Yeah. It was very violent musical chairs.
Win or you die.
So
Sketch idea. Write that down.
we're going to play sound effects, which is the first time we've ever played this. I don't know how it's going to go on a podcast because typically you do need
Kablam.
large movements. To kind of,
Yeah.
he's already got it, guys.
We've actually,
Interruption.
we've actually played this game once before,
Once
well
before
you
me?
came around.
Oh.
Yeah, whenever we were
Well.
interviewing the folks from Dead Center Film Festival.
Hopefully this is better
and
than that
and it
one
was
since I'm
interesting.
here.
So we're gonna try it again because I love this game
Okay,
and
good.
I think it's
okay.
perfect for podcasting.
Well, okay, so yeah, sound effects. Basically, we're going to do a what 3-person scene. Let's just do a 3-person scene, and
Yep.
you 3 will be the sound effects Masters. I'm going to call you Masters.
Word.
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna add the sound effects to our scene, and we're gonna go along with whatever happens.
Now, are we going to assign one person to each performer?
Yeah, let's do one person per performer. I don't know.
So-
Who wants me?
We got it.
All right, Caleb's going to do Neil over here. All right.
Yeah. All right. You guys right there, and we'll close proximity. So we got
Okay,
it.
there you go. Yeah, Jacob's
Yep,
going to do
yep.
me, and then Zach's.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, he's going to do me good. He's going to do me real good.
So let's. One of you guys, can you give us a suggestion of like a setting that might be unusual? I don't know. Location or
Podcast studio.
podcast studio.
Podcast studios.
All right. We're going to really stretch it today.
Okay.
See if you can imagine that in your brain.
So we're in a podcast studio. I feel like we should get one more.
Yeah, let's get one more suggestion. Awkward item to find in a bathroom.
Awkward item to find in a public bathroom?
Any bathroom.
Any bathroom.
Sledgehammer?
Sledgehammer.
Hey.
All right. All right.
That's
Okay.
So, Sledgehammer
that's perfect.
podcast room.
Okay.
Got it.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that explores the Heartland's entertainment industries. I'm Brian,
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Neil.
and we're here with. Why is there a sledgehammer here?
Oh, didn't they tell you they're demoing today?
They're we
They're
were supposed to be
I'm sorry,
recording a
guys.
podcast.
I know. They're Did you hear that? They already started.
Why are they using
hammering.
shotguns for demolition?
Are you shushing me? Are you shushing me? Or is
No,
that-
Kelly. That's the wind hitting the string from the wrecking ball.
You know how I feel about being shushed. Good. I'm glad that
was
the,
doing the
with the
demolition.
wrecking ball.
I would never shush you, Kelly, but this sledgehammer has really got to go because it's kind of awkward for our guests here for us to have a sledgehammer in the middle
Okay,
of this.
chunk it. I don't
All right, here we go.
Kathunk.
so
I'm glad we put a couch in the studio here.
guys, I don't know. I mean, of course, on this podcast, we try to be very upfront. We are trying to create a new podcasting studio within a McDonald's. I know it sounds weird, and they're demoing the McDonald's right now. But they let us use their back room. Okay, they let us
Yeah.
use their back room, and
That's
it's a full
true.
studio. They have a full podcasting
You know what?
studio here.
fries with that?
See, you already heard it.
You heard it.
Which actually, I forgot to flip the burgers.
Done.
Brian's been
Done.
contracted.
Flip.
See, it all kind of worked out though because like the golden arches, you just get excellent satellite signal.
We got great reception with those arches. See?
and there we also have aliens that are helping us send the signal all over.
I know, and
And
I,
very,
you know,
very
the aliens are great and all, but this one
I'm pretty
really
sure-
needs to stop probing my butt. He won't stop.
I'm not doing a sound effect.
I don't think we're going to top that.
I'm not doing that.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's
Yes.
Jacob,
Sure.
Zach Burns. It's always great to have you guys on. You're basically honorary co-host at this point.
It's true.
Caleb,
When do I start getting
you are
paid
not an
for that?
honorary co-host yet.
We don't have money here.
But challenge
so-
accepted.
Challenge accepted.
If we take your
Thank you
tips
for having us
someday.
on, Brian. Can we plug our stuff one more time? Can we
Do it.
No.
No?
Do it. Do it now.
Where can
No,
we find you
Caleb.
guys online?
You can find us, of course, at thecinematropolis.com. We have social media channels, 3, in fact. We have Facebook at facebook.com/thecinematropolis. Zach will tell us about the Twitter.
You can find the Cinematropolis on Twitter at the Cinematrop.
The Cinematrop.
Cinematrop.
Cinematropes.
Heart
Cinematrop.
P.
And same thing at Instagram, if you can handle that.
I can.
Hey, you can handle that. Oh.
Now, before we let you guys go, I do want to talk about there's a couple things that have happened.
We have some
recently.
spoilers. No, not really.
And so you guys just released a little something. You want to talk about that a little bit? Real
Yes,
quick.
so by the time this podcast is released, we will have released on DVD and Blu-ray and hopefully digital version as well of Electric Nostalgia for people to order.
That's definitely the score of the
And
movie.
then, so we are very excited about that because it's been a long
Indeed.
time coming. So, and then we're going to release it at the second annual
Whoa.
Planet Thunder Brainstorm event which happened on September 29th. It hasn't happened yet, but when you listen to this,
The
it
day
will
after
have.
my birthday. I'll be 29. I
was
am
the most
29
epic
in the future.
Oh, snap.
It's the most epic brainstorm you've ever seen.
Yes, and we've got.
It was so
lots
much
of cool
fun,
things.
guys. Man, it
whenever
was
we
great.
went, it was crazy. Like there were actual brains in the room.
And I was there.
And it was storming. Yeah,
A movie
was
dropped. It was on
crazy.
It was gnarly.
the rays were blue.
wow.
So
If you want to order Electric Nostalgia,
you
it
go.
should still be available for sale on our website. Hopefully, we'll
If
have
you
that
go
set
to
up.
planetthunderfilms.com,
Exactly.
there'll be a link there for sure.
Boom.
In the future, which is where we are.
And certainly on the Cinematropolis.
The year 2000.
Also on Cinematropolis.com.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. We love you guys always. Neil, plug yourself on social media.
At Neil Newby 95 or Neil Newby Photo and Film.
Kelly, where can we find you?
At home, making pot roast.
And paying babysitters
Yep.
to be
We're
watched
moving,
by their
though,
mothers.
So you can't find me at my house. Just go 2 doors down. We're moving from one house 2 doors down in the cul-de-sac. So you'll find me there if you're stalking me in my neighborhood.
The Great Migration of 2017. And of course, you can follow the Okie Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Okie Show. You can also go to our Patreon if you feel like being a patron and being a part of the behind-the-scenes
Be a cool
portions of the
guy.
show. Patreon.com/Okie Show. And you can also go to OkieShowShow.com and look at all the goodies that we have over at Cinema 405, the YouTube channel, all the crazy stuff that we've got, original sketches on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/OkieShowShow. And I think that's about it. We'll see you guys in the next 2 weeks. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okie Show.